In this lesson, we're going to be looking at the database that gets included with your XAMPP server. So this is a MySQL database, and you can access it using PHPmyAdmin.
This video is brought to you by PHPmyAdmin.
Make sure that you go over to your control panel, hit start on the MySQL database, make sure that it's up and running, and this gives you access to PHPmyAdmin. So now when you go over to localhost, you can actually see your console for PHPmyAdmin. And it's also got a myINI file as well, so you can take a closer look at what's happening within that INI file. So let's go over to admin. And it actually just opened it up in the wrong window here, so let me just get it to the right window. So this is available because I've got my local host up and running. I've got my PHPadmin, and this is essentially a MySQL database and my access to it via PHPmyAdmin, which is a PHP script that allows you to access your MySQL database settings. Notice it's sitting on the server 127.0.0.1. So this is the actual XAMPP server, and it's just simply sitting within XAMPP. Now with PHPmyAdmin, there's quite a few things that you can do with databases, and if you've got a database, so you've got some data in your database and you're working with it, so the connections are the same way. You can make connections to your database within the same type of format as you would working with your live database on your server. So creating the tables, running the MySQL queries, and so on, this is all available within your script. So let's open up our editor, and we're just going to do a quick database connection. So I'm going to open up our editor, as well as we're going to take a look, and we're going to make a quick update to the content that we have sitting here within our PHP database, MySQL database. So over here is my code, and in order to access the database with XAMPP, by default the database host is localhost, the user is root, there is no password, blank password, and then the database name corresponds with my database name that I've got set up within my XAMPP server. And then this is just simply making the link to it. We've got link and checking to see if there's any connection errors. Then I've created a query here, and I'm just going to run my query, and I'm going to check to see if my query was run, and if it was run, then I'm going to write out updated, otherwise I'm going to write out an error. So what it's going to do here is it's going to make an update to contact, and maybe we'll also update the company. So we'll do something like this, and we'll change this to company, and company will be XAMPP test. Let's go back out to data, refresh it, and now we see that we need to save this actually, sorry. Going back out here, refreshing it, we see that we've made that update to XAMPP. So it's just as easy as that, connecting the database, and this database code would be something that you typically would use within your web code. So we can also do things where we can insert as well. So if we want to insert some content here, test 100, size 10, another test. So we can insert it as we normally would with a database. We can also take this as a query, go back over here and update this query to be something else. So maybe if we want to update and insert this, we can do this as this way as well. So we don't need that. And if we run the code, then we can see updated. We go back to browse, and we can see that we're adding in additional entries. So when I update it, refresh it, go back over here and refresh it, we see we get all of these new updated entries. So essentially this is how PHP can interact with a database, and when you want to actually update this database, so maybe you have entered in content into the database on your live database, so you'd want to go to your web server, go over to export. So if you have PHPmyAdmin on your web server, you could just do an export of it and save it. And you see that you download that particular database table as a SQL file, and then if you want to import it, so going into your local machine, you should have a SQL file that you're up and ready to import, so you could just simply go choose the file, import it, and that would import it into your local machine or your XAMPP server and allow you to use the same data that you would on your regular server. So that's essentially just how you export and import data within a PHPmyAdmin environment, and you can do the same thing if you want to export data from your local machine or from your server and then import it either to your local machine or your server. So this is essentially just going to work the same way as any other MySQL database would work. You can also access it through SQL clients as well, using the same configuration here to access the database with localhost root, no password, blank password, and then just the database name. So this code I'm actually going to include in the next lesson. So in case you're looking for some simple code to make a database connection to your XAMPP server via PHP, you can do it this way as well, but just keep in mind that you won't necessarily have a database name called MyData, and as well you won't have the ability to insert into the tables because I won't have those tables within there, but again, just keep that in mind that you just have to make updates to that, and then the values that you're inserting. So you can do it the same thing that I did, and that's one of the really good things and cool things about PHPmyAdmin. Whenever you run any kind of queries into it, it actually outputs the query values here, and sometimes I do that as well, where I'll go over to here and I'll just simply take that as PHP code and I'll do SQL select all from test area, and we can just simply grab that as SQL, copy that. So just show you how this can work, and actually this won't actually output anything, but I could change my query to SQL and then just update it like that, or I could update instead of query over here, I could do SQL, and I could actually render out that content or run that same SQL query that I've had within PHPmyAdmin. And of course, there's a whole lot more to PHPmyAdmin. I just simply want to scratch the surface of it to give you a better idea of how you can interact with databases within your local machine and your local environment using PHPmyAdmin and the MySQL function within XAMPP. And in the next lesson, we're going to look at how we can send mail via PHP. So this is something that's set up within the edit, within the PHPini file, and we can set that up and use the PHP send mail function to send mail from our XAMPP server. So that's another really cool feature, and a lot of web pages, web applications, you've got this type of code included, so it's a great place to test that out and see if your code is working properly right within your local machine without having to go externally. And also keep in mind that when you are sending mail, that this is sending actual mail, so make sure that you're not including somebody's address that you might not want to send that mail to. So that's coming up in the next lesson.